Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, hope that your Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanzaa celebrations are all that you expected would be. Steve Cates, Dr. Sky here with Theater of the Mind with the Dr. Sky Experience. Proud to be, as always, here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our sincere wish for you and your family is a healthy, happy, and prosperous 2026. As the planet Earth, we know, spins around this magical fusion star, the sun, we find only days left as the Earth continues to move us into a new period in time and space, 2026. I can assure you right now, wherever you're listening, and of course, possibly calling us, and we hope you do, that the Earth's axis is still a solid 23 degrees, 26 minutes, 21 seconds of arc. And that tip is guaranteed, or at least for the duration of the show. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we always ask you, if you have questions or comments, to give us a call because of the 4 types of conversation: debate, discourse, diatribe, and dialogue. You know it by now if you're a regular listener. We love dialogue. And we love it with those questions and comments in the form of critical thinking. And so far, the audience has responded positively. If you'd like to email me, it's very simple. It's just drsky@wabcradio.com. And while you're at it, folks, if you've missed any of the Dr. Sky Experience, and for that matter, any of the other great hosts here on this great station 24/7, don't forget to go to wabcradio.com or redappleaudionetworks.com. And thanking our helmsman tonight, Kevin, as he navigates this particular navigation starship, as we like to call it, an energy beacon out into the universe. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we thank Kevin, and always thank Tony and Bill, who do an excellent job making sure that the signal that you're listening to is coming to you as proud and as loud as you would expect. As we say often, heard in 173 countries, all 50 states, and what? In my hope, beaming out into the cosmos, and you never know what lies out there. The contact number, as always, is 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. But to give you a better reason to call in, what's tonight's adventure about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this particular radio show, the main theme, as you've been listening since about the middle portion, or the earlier, I should say, spring portion of 2025, the Dr. Sky Experience has always been about always look to the skies. And as this might be the last of the live shows of 2025, and wait, you ain't seen nothing yet for 2026. We got a great lineup. If you're a new listener, we talk always with you, not at you, about the subject of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests, and, of course, stories of American exceptionalism. But what about this iteration of the Dr. Sky Experience? As we move through the solemnity of the holidays and put to our minds what it is like to look in the deep, dark skies. And ladies and gentlemen, everybody listening, can you remember, I'm sure you can, the night that you saw the sky at its best? Where were you? And did you take those 2 eyes and stare deep out into the depths of the cosmos? I'm sure you did. And that memory is literally burned in so many people's memories in a positive way. We'll be speaking in just a moment with an author known as Craig Childs. This, a very important subject, his book, ladies and gentlemen, The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. Craig Childs, like a modern-day Sir David Attenborough, has been looking down at the world, not with negativity, but examining what's below our feet. But many of his previous books have done that, but now looks up with The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. A little bio on Craig Childs, an explorer, who begins tales and brings tales of deserts and ice caps to the page. He has published more than a dozen critically acclaimed books, including The Secret Knowledge of Water, Atlas of a Lost World, Stone Desert, Virga and Bone, and Tracing Time. His books have won numerous honors, including the Reading the West Book Award, Southwest Book of the Year, a Forward Indies Medal, and the Orion Book Award. His nonfiction narratives and journalism have appeared in The Atlantic, Outside, High Country News, The New York Times, The Sun, The Los Angeles Times, and National Public Radio. He lives in Southwest Colorado and has been kind enough to join us at the end of the year 2025. Craig Childs, welcome to the Dr. Sky Experience. Thank you for being with us this morning. Craig, are you with us? Well, let's give it another try. Craig, are you with us?
Let me try it from here.
Okay. That sounds better, Craig. I can now hear you. It sounded like some kind of a solar storm just interrupted us. But welcome to the show. That's what I wanted to say.
You have to pass through. You have to pass through all the layers to find each other.
There you go, my friend. Well, how are you? I hope your holiday was just what you expected it to be, and appreciate you joining us this morning.
Certainly. I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Steve.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's start the conversation off this way. This is so interesting. You've written so many books. And I mentioned to the audience here that you've been looking down at the world, not in a disrespectful way, but analyzing the things below our feet on the ground. But this book to me is so fascinating because, as many people may not know, or maybe they do know by now, my passion, of course, is the night sky like you, and studying it and observing for well over 45 years through big telescopes, small telescopes, listening to people and interviewing some of the world's best. Talk about the compulsion for writing this book, because I find the journey you're about to take us on is most incredible. Let's start with that.
Yeah, I find that in everything that I'm writing, that the night sky is a major part of it. That I think I write narratively from the ground, that I'm exploring archaeology or geology, and so it's always some adventure, some journey somewhere, and the night sky is always this presence. I'm often far away from lights, from human lights on Earth, so I'm often in the stars, even when I'm on the ground, and yes. I have so many experiences with the sky that I decided to write a book about what the night sky means to us on Earth and how it affects us on Earth. So I guess it was inevitable that I would write about what it's like to look up when I do spend so much time on the ground, just viscerally feeling our landscape and taking it in. But then, you look up and you go, well, what is all that going on up there?
Absolutely.
So
Greg, I pose this question to our audience out there because we'd like to get them involved in our thing we call conversation in this theater of the mind, because obviously theater of the mind is something very, very powerful, because if we can have people that may be having a down day, maybe somebody out there has got some issues that they can't resolve and they think, wow, the world is too complicated. Everything's going around fast. And as many people have said, I can't answer it as a person of science. The impression that many people have given me this week is that the Earth seems to make itself go faster and that the years seem to go faster. And some have said it's because we age, and when we get older, we notice it. But I don't even know if that's true. But the point I'm trying to make is very simple. It's that, ladies and gentlemen, think about the most magnificent time, the skies that you see, or the skies that you did see. The big issue, right, Craig Childs, is the subject of light pollution. And we're talking right now to an audience that on both coasts, ladies and gentlemen, on the West Coast, incredible rain coming down. These atmospheric rivers of great power and intensity. And I need not remind the listeners in the tri-state area, winter storm warning that continues, if I'm correct, and looking at this right now on my system and my computer, till 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, at least for the East Coast. So the point is, what I'd like to bring people's attention is the necessity for being able to see the sky. And maybe there's people out there that say, well, Craig and Steve, who cares? I want to have my light. I want to make sure that I see my driveway. There's all these crime issues out there, none of which are not correct. But But the point of the matter is, take us on a journey on this, because what I'm about to share with you, about to share with the audience, I think is most incredible. Your journey starts in one of the most light-polluted locations on the earth, Las Vegas, Nevada. Talk about what you guys did, and your partner. Describe him to us and what you did.
Well, we set out on a journey to go from Las Vegas, being one of the brightest points in North America, to the darkest place in Nevada. Because the western North America has these large islands of darkness, and it seemed like Las Vegas was the best place because it's such an abrupt change. Yep. Abrupt being relative, because we biked starting on the Las Vegas Strip out about 200 miles north, and it was backcountry biking. We had all of our gear with us. It was unsupported, so we had everything with us, and we were traveling over these complex and rough trails and roads out through the Basin and Range Desert. And the idea here was to watch the change night by night, and over, this was 9 nights, to see an incredibly different sky each night as we left Vegas, which I didn't actually know that's what would happen, that each night would be so different. But it turned out that, 9 very different nights took us to get to the darkest place, because even, halfway out, sure, there were times where I was going, oh, this is an incredible sky. How much better does it get? And that was halfway, and it got better.
I give you and your partner credit, Craig. I mean, you're telling us you're doing this on bicycle, and I've done this nothing like you. I mean, I'll ride locally around here when I can. I should make more time, and we all should, to get some exercise. But you're loaded up with your gear. Let's start with the ground zero location, as I like to call it, the big bubble of light. I don't know how many of our listeners here on Talk Radio 77 have been to this particular location in Las Vegas, the big sphere, which is like what? A gigantic ball that projects all kinds of images. I haven't been there in person, so if anybody out there has seen it, but the issue now, what we're talking about, is you start at the ground zero. That and the lights of Las Vegas just literally wipe out the sky. We know that. And it's a great place to go to have fun, or, whatever you want to do. But the point of the matter is, you're going on a journey that's taking you from one of the most brilliant illuminated parts of the world. Again, the Luxor with its incredible beams that go out into space. I've talked to astronauts that have said that when they're flying and sailing 200 miles above the Earth, the space shuttle days, you could see the beam of the Luxor. So it's a big problem with light. So let me not steal your thunder. Tell us again, that's about the sphere, and then where you go from there.
Yeah, the sphere is this 300-foot tall orb, the largest projection screen in the world, and light goes in all directions. And I guess, you might be assuming that I'm writing about Las Vegas and the sphere as being these negatives, because they do basically destroy our view of the night sky. But at the same time, something I wrote about in the book is called positive phototaxis, which is the lure toward light that most organisms have, and humans are not immune from it. I'm not immune from it. I love Las Vegas. I've spent a lot of time there, because I used to guide on the Grand Canyon, and we'd come out on the Nevada side, and I head to Las Vegas and just go, oh my God, this is brilliant, because it's just so stunning to see. Right. But it erases the sky, and so I wanted to start there to go, okay, this is the baseline. This is the most light that we can get, but even then, there's still a few stars, a couple of planets. Like, you can look up, and I was in Tokyo last summer, and looking up at the night sky and seeing, there is something up there. You can spot barely visible, as one of the most populated cities on Earth, Tokyo, Japan. Oh yeah,
and overpowering light pollution. Right.
You can still, it was important for me every night to go outside and wander between buildings until I could find a planet or a star and make contact. And that's what something I wanted to do with this book was to say, every night sky is worth it. Even if it's in Las Vegas.
You don't have to convince me, my friend, and I'm sure the audience out there, that's why we're here to talk about something in a little, how do I say this, a little more calm mode, a little more peaceful. And again, the name of this particular radio show, as you can hear the opening act, is Always Look to the Skies, and that's what we share here on Talk Radio 77 WABC with our very special guest, Craig Childs, an author of so many books. But bring something to our attention here, because I'm fascinated by what I read your book from front to back, and that's, I don't always say that. I'm always honest with every author that we get, but I wanted to do this because it has a message that's deep. But let me ask you this. You alluded to something about certain animals that are attracted to light. So humans are. Give us an example from the world of nature. This is fascinating, what you're about to hear, folks.
Oh, well, it's that almost everything is attracted to light. Very few organisms aren't, and so we have this pull. Like, in particular for Las Vegas, one thing I was looking at was grasshoppers, and because there have been events where millions upon millions of grasshoppers have converged on Las Vegas because of the amount of light. And it makes sense when you imagine them out in the darker desert where there is no light, but then there is something on the horizon and they move toward that, and then they're coming from all angles, and then they besiege the city. I mean, it is their drive to come toward light, and then we create these places that they cannot stay away from. Birds flying, navigating by stars, navigating primarily by Polaris, the North Star.
Correct.
They're looking for a stable light in the night sky, one that doesn't move. Like all the other stars are moving around Polaris, so there's a singular light that they're drawn onto. But then when that light becomes Las Vegas, or it becomes your porch light, or whatever it is, they are drawn to that, and birds just converge. And
yes, Greg, and that brings up, and not to cut you short, that brings up an emotional thing. My leg, it's a reaction here when I hear the light that grows so popular in so many areas, the amount of light, the magnitude of light. I'm concerned about that because we've had individuals here who study the story of bird migration, and I'm sure you know a lot about it. That the interesting thing here is, how is that affecting, with the subject of light pollution, the animals? What about dogs and cats? What about horses? What about all animals, as you described the insect world? And in your book, not to take away from, we want people to go get the book. And of course, the book itself, ladies and gentlemen, The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. The publisher is Torrey House Press, and I'm sure, as all good books, you can get that, ladies and gentlemen, on any place that sells great books. And of course, Amazon seems to lead the list there too. We have a few more minutes before we go to the hard break here, but this is so fascinating. I want to bring up in our next segment, after the bottom of the hour hard break, the whole concern in the world. A gentleman that I knew, and this is interesting, maybe you've talked to him, a man who actually gave the classification of different intensities of the night sky, called the Bortle system. John Bortle. I remember back when I was in the New York area, I took the liberty of trying to see if I could ever talk to this man about his study of comets. And you may remember this, Greg. Back in 1973, Comet Kohoutek was something that was supposed to be the big comet, better than Halley's. So I called him, and he spoke with me, and I was so enamored because I was just a kid. But the point is, had you ever met this gentleman that we're going to talk about, John Bortle, personally? Have you ever talked to him?
I haven't. I wanted to talk to him for this book, and then I decided the book actually became designed on the Bortle scale. And I thought, don't ruin it. Don't talk to him. Because he may not agree with a book that is based on him. I'm glad to hear that you talked with him, because I'm fascinated with his scale, because it's a naked eye scale where it's just, there are no numbers. It's more just looking up and what do you see? Which stars are present? which nebula can you see, and so that defined a very simple way of seeing the sky. Looking at the number of stars that are visible in the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, and that tells you what kind of night you're in. So John E. Bortle became kind of the patron saint of my journey with my friend across the desert.
And we'll get into that, ladies and gentlemen, after we go to that hard break in a few moments, because I'd like to identify what this magnitude scale is so people understand what our special guest Craig Childs in his book as the author has been doing on bike, going a couple of 100 miles from one of the most lit cities. And I mean that literally lit in many ways. You look at Las Vegas, Nevada.
Very lit.
and the distance that you go. I've spent a lot of time up in the Area 51 region. That's a whole nother story. But ladies and gentlemen, you're the reason we have this radio show. The contact number 1-800-848-9222. If you'd like to get in on the conversation, we will do that, and we'll open the phone lines up to you as soon as we return from that hard break, like Frank in Astoria, and many of you out there. So the question I would pose to the audience, and I think Craig Childs, you would agree, how much is this light pollution, is it a major concern for you? And if you say, well, I'm not really sure, I don't understand enough about it, stay tuned. But the interesting part that I'll bring up here is, what about you have young children, let's say, and you want to pass on the torch of knowledge to them so that should they be denied the ability to ever see the Milky Way in the sky? And people say, well, I live in a big city. I can't see anything. That's not true. And, of course, if people have some disposable income, they can go to places that you can at least see some of these impressive objects in the sky. So how long did your journey take? And may I ask, I don't think I picked it up in the book, what time of year was this that you did this so everybody understands? What time of year?
This was mid-November, so it wasn't brutally hot in the desert, in the Mojave. But it wasn't yet freezing solid like it is in December. So we hit it at a sweet moment. It was a bit colder than we planned on, so we were shivering every night, nine nights out. Which for me that's a shorter trip. But it was the right number of nights because the Bortle scale is 9 from 1 to 9, and so each night was a different level of the Bortle scale.
Interesting, Craig. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm gathering here from few of our conversations off air, that you might have the ability to talk about living off the grid. And I know that's fascinating because so many of us, hey, I'm guilty of this. I don't know, and it's not really a crime, but I don't know how I would live off the grid as much as I would say, hey, that's cool. So may I ask, directly, you've lived off the grid more than not, or is that not accurate? Tell us.
Oh yeah, I've been off grid since I think 1990.
Wow.
So every place I've been and lived has been solar. And
so the electric company's no major friend of yours, but not by your fault. So there you go.
No, it's just I live in remote spots.
Wow. Now that's cool. So real quick, about a minute or two, you got the floor. What really is living off the grid? Tell us. I get it. People say, well, I live by myself in the woods, but describe that lifestyle in a little more detail.
Yeah, it's changed a lot over the years from place to place. But I raised a family off grid in Colorado.
Wow!
Right now, I live in an adobe house on the edge of a canyon with my wife, and I don't think anybody, if you came into the house, you wouldn't know that we're off grid.
You may want to give us tips later in the show on this because many people want a different lifestyle. And I think that's also, we respect that. And certainly I respect you for bringing this to I'm bringing this to the attention of the audience in a very proud way because that is amazing. I've RV'd, people say glamping or different types of camping.
Oh, yeah.
It's not necessarily off the grid per se, but they go back to their normal lives. You've done it a long time. And that's interesting. So your trek into the desert, leaving the lights of Las Vegas, a very interesting book, ladies and gentlemen, but you, the audience, of course, 1-800-848-9222 on many subjects. Could you live off the grid, folks? And if you could, maybe you need some tips or want to from this gentleman who can give you some ideas because it's becoming more and more popular. as what, Craig? Cities are getting more populated, lights, and of course AI is coming into the picture, not to be depressing. But Craig Childs, thank you for being with us, and we will continue, ladies and gentlemen, with our special guest, author of The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. And yes, you are the most important part of this radio show, and that is the contact number. The gateway to the theater of the mind is 1-800-848-9222. We'll be right back, joining Craig Childs and you, ladies and gentlemen, on Talk Radio 77 WABC with the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I will love the light, for it shows me the way. Yet I will love the darkness, for it shows me the stars. An apropos quote from Og Mandino. 32 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, a very special treat, at least for myself and hope for you, as we end the year 2025 in just a matter of days. The main mission of this radio show has, as you hear the opening credit, is, and we say it proudly, always look to the skies. A very special guest who's going to enlighten us, and he is already doing that, is Craig Childs, the author of The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. Let's go to the callers right now, ladies and gentlemen. So important to the show, as we say, Frank in Astoria, good morning. Happy New Year coming up. How are you doing? And thanks for waiting.
Yes, Happy New Year, Dr. Sky.
Thank you.
I, for many years in my entire life, believe in living off the grid. Okay, I noticed that since 1990, I cannot take or accept the way things are now, how they're forcing everyone to not rely on electrical, non-electrical solar power. They don't want us to use that type of saving of energy. Here in New York, we were forced to, live under a neutral, specific electrical outage belief and system of econometers to force everyone to live under conserved energy with a conversion of transformer electrical energy in our power stations. And that's not fair, because I remember a time when energy was more carbon-based, that photosynthetic processes, especially in New York, were more abundant. You could go to the park and see species of animals that were not extinct. Animals were evolved with natural breeding. Now it's very difficult for animals to breed normally as they used to. I see different types of sparrows that are not the ones I used to see back when maybe 35 or 40 years ago. I see a lot of species that they don't migrate to the city no more, nest here anymore, because of the lack of photosynthetic energy that was allowed to come in when the electrical systems in New York were conducted and financed differently. So it's changed. It's not killing. It sure
has, Frank. And I want Craig to jump in on this, because the concept of living off the grid, it may not be for everybody, but Craig, carry on, because this is interesting, Craig. Frank brings up some interesting concepts about what's happening in modern day world.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of us, and when I come into town, I come into the city and I plug into the grid. I mean, I appreciate that it exists, but that's just not where I live. I live farther out, and I guess off the grid for me has been kind of happenstance. But I also like to back away from civilization whenever possible, and plug directly into the sun, which is handy. But one thing I appreciate about it is that in the winter, I've never had an especially large solar system. So around December, January, I have to start really paying attention to what I leave on, because it is
everything's finite, right? Everything's finite. Nothing lasts forever. But Frank, not to cut you short there, Craig, I just want Frank to join us again. And you get the closing comment, because I would wonder, the great question I want to ask Craig, and if you want to go ahead and ask it, is what's the hardest part of living off the grid, which may not be obvious to everybody, right, Frank?
Yeah, it's awful living off the grid because you can't really enjoy the luxuries of power usage and your choice of energy according to what you feel is fair and just for you as a person, as a family, as a community. It's the power grid issue is forced upon you now because they say that we're losing energy because of poor petroleum investments, so we have to adapt to what a power grid should be like now.
Well, people need to be aware, Frank, and we got to move on here. But listen, the biggest thing I can say to you in all sincerity is wish for you and your family and everybody listening for joyous and prosperous 2026 in light of all the things that we hear going around in the day part of the world. We wish everybody the best. Thanks for calling, Frank. Hope you'll continue in the year 2026. We have a lot of other good surprises coming in all these different subjects. Thanks for being with us. The number, ladies and gentlemen, 1-800-848-9222. Questions, and we'd like to move forward that you might have, ladies and gentlemen. We kind of got off a little bit on the grid and how it may be difficult for some to do this, but let's get back to the main tenets of the book if we can, Craig. This is so fascinating. Yeah. You talk about journeying away from one of the most light-polluted areas in the world, and yet let's define this Bortle system. There's 9 categories that John Bortle came up. And what do we have? We have, starting with what? Number 1 would be what? The most incredible.
Number 1 is the darkest, which we call it the darkest, but it's actually the brightest non-human sky, because as you know, when you're in the darkest sky, it's actually quite bright. It casts a shadow. The stars and the interplanetary dust reflecting the sunlight back or cause a shadow to form on the ground.
Right, and we're not trying to make people jealous out there, Craig. It's just that, I can say this. My partner and I, there's a home that I visit with her up in the mountains in the Mogollon Rim. And I can tell you, watching in the night sky up there, I don't want to sleep. I want to stay up all night, as anybody would if they love this. But the worst of the conditions, and that has to be careful, I put it with a small w, not a capital, is that it could be for super bright cities, and let's say downtown Manhattan. But yes, folks, even though that's the one that wipes out most of the sky, don't change the channel, because there's still plenty of things that you can actually see, believe it or not. So it's a 1 through 9 scale. And you start off in Las Vegas, and you're measuring the intensity of the sky scientifically. So on your journey, without going through the entire litany, the number 1 is the best, 2 is less than the 1 as far as quality of the sky. Give us an analysis of what most people might have if they lived in a suburban area, and not asking you to guess. What Bortle number would there be, 4 or 5?
Yeah, 5 is a pretty good sky. I would say most people are living, a suburban sky would be 3 and 4, where you can see some stars, but they're pretty faint. It feels like there's not much reason to look up unless you really focused. And so I think people forget about night skies in the 3 and 4 zone, which is a typical suburban zone. When you get toward 5, you start to be able to define constellations, and actually the 5 and 6, Bortle 5 and 6 are some of the best constellation skies, because once you get darker, like 2 and 1, there are so many stars that you lose the constellations. It just becomes, it's the most beautiful sky, but it's hard to pick anything out because there's so many stars.
Well, Craig, I got a problem here. Where I am in Phoenix, okay, it used to be from downtown Phoenix, just using that as the bird would fly. I'm maybe 20 miles from downtown. And in those years, been out here about 35 years, the sky back then, 35 years ago, I could see details that were incredible, not to put it on a Bortle scale. But now with all the growth, hey, I'm not against growth, but here's the point. What I want to know is, What's your opinion on this? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear what other people have to say on this. You see a lot of these sports places, like high schools, colleges.
Yeah.
They leave the football field lights on all night long. Why? I mean, if they're trying to conserve energy, maybe there's a reason. Anybody know out there in the theater of the mind at 1-800-848-9222? But isn't that incredible? Why would you want to keep those things on all night when there's nothing going on? There's nothing to steal there. You can't take the sod up in the grass. Isn't that bizarre?
I think it's what we do. We're making a statement. We're excited by light. Mm-hmm. Light is brilliant. It is exciting to see the stadium lights and all of that, but I just don't think we realize what that does to everything else, and Phoenix in particular. I mean, I went to high school.
You grew up in Tempe, Arizona, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I was born, and I remember the outskirts of the city being fairly dark out in the desert, and granted, those places have been entirely consumed by the city now. Mm-hmm. But it's a different quality of light at the edge of the city than it was.
It is. It's amazing.
30, 40 years ago.
Craig, you're popular. The phone lines continue as we would expect to you. Let's go to Al in Yonkers. Al, Happy New Year coming to you and your family. You're on with Craig Childs. How you doing?
Good, Dr. Scott. Thanks for taking my call. Happy holidays to you and your guest. I just wanted to ask a quick question to your guest, your interesting guest. I just wanted to ask, living off the grid, do you live near dangerous possible animal predators? And if you do, aren't you concerned with the safety of your wife?
She's concerned. I guess.
There you go. I'm not trying to be funny, but no, that was a quick answer there from Craig.
Yes, we have mountain lions, we have bears, and I'm very familiar with these animals, but they give us wide berth, and especially in places like we live in a very rural place. The nearest town has 500 people. And in those places, there's less conflict with wildlife because there's less movement into their landscape. So they're very used to us, and they steer clear of us. And, we turn on our outside lights, and we've had bears right up to the door, but as soon as you open the door, they depart. So it's not so much light. Light is more letting us know what's there. They don't seem to be as concerned with it. But yeah, it's a good question. We have a lot of animals around, but we live together more or less. I mean, not kumbaya holding hands together, but more we recognize each other's space.
Well, Al, stay with us. We're going to hold you over if you'd like to continue the conversation here as we go to a break in just a moment here. Ladies and gentlemen, 1-800-848-9222, the sanctity of the nighttime sky. That's up for conversation. A gentleman who knows so much about this, seeing the degradation of the sky. He, of course, in a naturalist role. He obviously has a lot to say. He's Craig Childs, the author of a great book. I mean, if you're interested in nature, ladies and gentlemen, and some of the backstories he has, the book is entitled The Wild Dark: Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. More with our special guest and you, ladies and gentlemen, at 1-800-848-9222. What's the darkest sky you've ever seen? When and where? Talk to us about that and share your experience. And are you concerned, ladies and gentlemen, about some of the things like our special guest is talking about, your ability or inability to possibly live off the grid? We'll be right back on The
Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The sky is an infinite movie to me. I never get tired of looking at what's happening up there. An interesting quote from musical sensation Katie Lang. 47 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, and we are here with the Dr. Sky Experience. Wishing everybody out there within the sound of this powerful signal, 77 WABC, the best for health, happiness, and a fantastic 2026. Let's continue with our special guest, Craig Childs, and if we still have Al in Yonkers, Al, continue. We didn't want to cut you short. If you have a closing comment or question, please continue.
Thanks so much, Dr. Sky, and your great guest there. I won't keep you because I know you have other callers, but I wanted to say that would always be a concern of mine. You know, we see what's happening in Japan with the country telling people to beware. The bears there's so many now bear attacks occurring. We see in San Francisco that coyotes are all over the place. So I just figured off the grid that would be a concern of mine, because a lot of these animal predators are smart, and you know, they could be really dangerous. But I thank you both so much.
You bet, sir. Thank you, and hope you'll be with us, of course, in 2026.
Yeah, thanks, Al. And if I can say one thing about that is I think that you get used to living with animals, and we don't often get used to living in wild places with animals. So it becomes very normal out there that this is just, these are the people who are around you, and they just are not human. They're something else.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah, you made it very clear. I mean, really, really interesting.
No, thank you. We appreciate it. So you know what, Craig? This is interesting. So you're riding on bicycle. How many hours or how far do you get in a day, let's say, in your journey? I mean, I don't know. I've never ridden more than 25 miles a day.
Well, these are pretty rough miles. These are roads that are, you're going 80 miles and there's nothing out there at all. And, flat tires and mechanical breakdowns. So we're making about 25 miles, and we've got everything with us. We did set water caches every 3 days or so. But we've got all of our food and gear with us. So we got these heavy mountain bikes that are banging away on ridge lines and these basins that were just full of these old ice age lakes that had dried up. So this fine powder that you're biking through. So it's
how do you navigate? That's what I want to ask. How do you navigate? This is interesting. You and your partner.
Well, he and I we figured that we've spent 400 nights out together in the last, 30 years. We used to work as guides together, and we're used to navigating in this kind of landscape. I mean, we had paper maps with us. We had some GPS when we were within signal, but mostly it was getting to a high point and looking out and going, okay, it looks like we've got a road down there that keeps going. Let's take that one. So you're kind of feeling your way along.
Wow. So you're going to search for the darkness of the night. Such an amazing thing. And I want you to talk about this because John Steinbeck, of course, and you're much more qualified to talk about it. He describes something, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm sure everybody out there in the theater of the mind here has experienced. Describe to us the hour of the pearl in what John Steinbeck had said. How would you define what he was saying? That's fascinating.
Yeah, the hour of the pearl is the twilight. And it is my favorite hour. I mean, I love I don't know what hour of the day I don't like, but the hour of the pearl is it's where you're coming out of the full dark of night and you're starting to get dusk, and the sky is very pearlescent. It's you've still got stars, but the light is coming on, and you're able to see in a different way. That is my favorite time of day. I'm out every morning in the hour of the pearl.
If there's a heaven to me, and I don't want to be overly dramatic because obviously people who are interested in the sky and everybody listening at this particular hour here wherever it's dark, and of course wherever the sun is up around the other parts of the world. To me, that's that solemnity. That's amazing because you stand there and you look, and I don't want to steal thunder from you, but there's something I want to describe to people that they may not have known, but they've seen so many times, and I'm sure you've watched it, Craig Childs. Upon the time of sunset, if you look directly to the east, you see this shadow band with the pink light. And it's known, ladies and gentlemen, as the belt of Venus. Now, isn't that interesting, Craig? You see this belt of Venus and along a clear sky. Describe that to people, because it's the sunset. It's the shadow of the Earth being sent out into space, and you're seeing the last glimmer of light. And they call it the belt of Venus. I don't know the definition, and maybe you know why they called it that, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and you can see the night rising in the same way that you see a sunset, you see a night rise. Mm-hmm. And that's coming up out of the east, and like you said, that is the shadow of the Earth, which as the sun is setting farther and farther away, that shadow rises higher and higher, and it starts to bring up stars with it. And it's such a transition. If you can stay outside and watch that whole transition, which takes an hour or so or an hour and a half from light until dark, then your eye really adjusts. And I think that can happen anywhere. You can be in Manhattan watching it happen, because in Manhattan the artificial light comes on, but you're still seeing that transition. You're witnessing the turning of the Earth and the rising of the night. It's a very powerful moment.
Well, I say this in all seriousness. That observation that you're talking about, of what Steinbeck wrote about, the hour of the pearl, is better than any prescription drug that I could get to calm me down, because there's nothing like it. And I'm sure everybody out there has experienced that. And maybe what, Craig? Through this radio show for the next new year, obviously people that are running around, the hustle and bustle of city life, especially during the holidays, maybe we try to take a little vacation from all that. And that's the whole reason this radio show was here from the beginning and is now, and proud to be here, is that we always look to the skies as the main particle of this radio program. And it's great. It's infectious to me, but I hope it's that powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, 1-800-848-9222. As we move through the holidays here, we promise you a sky report. Craig, I don't know if I mentioned this, but every time we're on the air, we give everybody a quick update. So if you don't mind me taking some time from you for the purpose of talking about what's in the heavens, we find ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of 2025 with something very interesting, and Craig will comment on it in detail during hour number 2. If you look right now into your skies, the moon is waxing just past first quarter. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's moving on so that you'll see in January, about the 3rd, the first of a series of supermoons, full supermoons. These are moons that are closest to the Earth when the moon is at that perigee position when it's a full moon. So we have the full super wolf moon coming up on January 3. And if you're out there now where it's dark and you have clear skies, and I recognize you're under in the East Coast, a major winter storm warning, but when those things subside, usually after these low pressure systems, you get this amazing clear and it gets a little colder. The beauty of the planet Jupiter is that object you see right in the northeast, now about a little less than 400 million miles away from your eye. But Craig, the best one, and I was out watching it last night here in Arizona. The most brilliant star in the heavens that we see other than the sun is the star Sirius, 8.6 light years from the Earth. What does that mean in relativistic terms? It means that if you go back in time, the light of Sirius now left around May 26th, 2017, and just got here right now. And I don't want to take the thunder away from you, but the Greeks and Latins referred to it as the scorcher. So isn't Sirius this most magnificent energy ball out in the sky?
Yeah, and it's the one that it's changing colors so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like a police siren, the way it's going. Red or green, blue. It's such a brilliant star, and it's only visible this time of year. I mean, from late summer into the beginning, into spring, and it's always it catches my eye in a different way than the other stars do. It's really a unique color, or a unique combination of colors, because it changes colors every quarter second. It's a real shimmering star.
It's beautiful. And just to let people know where to see it, which I failed in my duty at this point, but here we go, ladies and gentlemen, to complete the cycle. In the evening, around 9 p.m., if you look into the southeast sky, no matter where you are, even in these latitudes as far south as Texas, all the way up to Maine, and even into Canada, the object rises in the sky earlier than that, but easily seen. And I was watching it last night. I did a little video that I put up on Facebook. But to get the complete January 2026 Dr. Sky Experience Sky Report, simply go to the Dr. Sky Experience at WABCRadio.com or, ladies and gentlemen, RedAppleAudioNetworks.com. We update you in a much longer version for those out there that want much more information about the wonders of the heavens. Craig Childs, we've only begun with you as hour number 1 goes into the history books. As people know, this radio signal traveling at the speed of light is continuing to go out from every time the WABC radio signal, 104 years strong. You know that it's moving out into the universe. And we, of course, will be back with hour number 2 with your questions and comments. And by the way, if you have any guest suggestions, we don't guarantee that we'll put everyone on because we can't guarantee we'll get everyone. It's just the email, drsky@wabcradio.com. This, ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate the end of another year. And I don't know, Craig, it's amazing. As maybe we get older, not saying you, but maybe me. Who knows? Maybe others agree. It seems like the time goes faster as we get to be a little older and a little more experienced. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with our special guest, and if you have any other guest suggestions, as I mentioned, not to be overly redundant, we're always welcome to listen on the great subjects of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests. We have plenty coming, and stories of American exceptionalism that you know you want to hear about truth, justice, and the American way. Proud to be part of this lineup. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us here as we move through the end period of 2025, wishing you and your families the best for a healthy, happy, and most sacred 2026. It's amazing how fast time flies, as you've heard, folks. But as we continue to talk about these subjects, great events here in the Theater of the Mind. Tonight's adventure, ladies and gentlemen, a very special guest, Craig Childs. He's the author of an interesting book, and I encourage you folks to read this if you're looking at ways to see the beauty and splendor of the night sky, and pass that torch on to your children. The book is entitled The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. Craig Childs, like a modern-day Sir David Attenborough, he's been described. Many of his books, he's been looking down, not on the world in a negative way, but now he continues to look up with the wild dark, finding the night sky in the age of light. I find this fascinating. You're also a regular contributor to NPR's Morning Edition program, and bragging on you a little bit here, of course, you'll continue the, story here. You're a narrator in some very interesting documentary called The Time Lapse of the Future. Talk about the time lapse of the future and how people can see that. I tell the story of I'm telling the story of time often. Mm-hmm. Both from a geologic Earth perspective and watching it happen in the sky, watching the seasons change, So I have a lot of my writing is about a sense of time and millions of years, billions of years. You mentioned how it seems like time is going so much faster, and yes. Yeah, I think as we age, that's true. But I also think that everything that we're doing is accelerating. We're expecting things to happen in nanoseconds. We're expecting so much rapid response. When I'm used to being I'm out. I'm far away from civilization. I'm at a different time scale where I'll be sitting in the desert in the shade, waiting for the day to pass, and my measurement of time is the movement of shadows is a very different measurement than I'm used to when I'm back in the human world where everything is boom, 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 moving. And you're very intuitive, and that's why we have you here, because there's so many things to do, ladies and gentlemen. Not that we're trying to bend your arm or leg and convince you of the regular daylight world that we work in, let's say. Most of us, our bodies and minds are ruled by the sun. That's what we do. But now, hearing a different iteration of this is really fascinating because, what would you say? And I've not taken the quote and originating it. It's time to smell the roses. And, it's good for the heart. It's good for the soul, right? It's good for everything. How could it not be good, correct?
Well, I think our bodies, this is how we've been for hundreds of thousands, millions of years since there was life on Earth, was more in tune with the 24-hour pattern, with the rising and setting of the sun, where I think we erase that by, when it starts to get dark, we turn on the lights, and we miss that transition, which is, we're accustomed to slower movement than what we've adapted to in the world we've created. And I appreciate the world we've created. It's brilliant.
Sure.
But there is this other much larger world of the sky turning, which I think changes our way of seeing our lives. It changes the day, the stress.
I'm convinced.
Much about our world.
I'm convinced. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're curious of what we're talking about here in hour number 2, in case you weren't joining us, Craig Childs, the author of a brand new book, The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky, as I've mentioned, in the Age of Light. Proud to have him as a guest. We're talking about a multiple, series of topics. He lives off the grid for most times. Proud of it. Can talk about that. He and his partner have taken a journey from one of the most light polluted areas of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I enjoy when I go there, and many people do. It's great. But the point is, light pollution is the subject that we're talking about. And he and his partner have trekked on bike to go to these different regions that are away from Las Vegas. And if you've ever been through there and have driven, if you didn't just fly in and fly back and spend some time in the outer area, the outbank, the outer part, this is an interesting story because they're looking at what we call in astronomy the different Bortle sky illumination ratings. And he's mentioned that they go from 1 to 9. 1 would be this magnificent sky like heaven, where even the sky, if you're looking for dark skies, it goes just the opposite. Everything in the heavens is so overpowering, in a good way. And 9 is like where I live, let's say in the hearts of Phoenix and areas that we're broadcasting to around the country. You may not get to see the sky. So please continue your journey, because you have some interesting stories, being a person who's a naturalist too. Tell us some of the stories of the ancient peoples throughout this particular part of the country. Is it the Paiute Native American tribe? Have I said it right? I know that's one of the tribes.
Paiute. The southern Paiutes. We did find rock art, petroglyphs, while we were out on this bike trek that tell one of the old southern Paiute stories of Sky God's son, who was a bighorn sheep, and he climbed to the tallest mountain and couldn't get off of it. So Sky God reached down and picked him up and put him in the sky, making him Polaris, the North Star.
Interesting.
And there's so many sky stories, but also across the Southwest over the last few thousand years, there are a lot of rock art sites, petroglyphs and pictographs that are oriented toward the sky. That during the solstice, which just passed 5 days ago, 6 days ago, there would be a shadow that cuts through the middle of a spiral, pecked or painted on a rock. There's so many alignments with celestial movements that tell us that people here 1,000 years ago, and people around the world, it wasn't just the Southwest, it was everywhere, that people were aligning themselves with stellar events.
Well, Craig, one of the most powerful supernova, this is a personal story from me in the desert Southwest. I have no knowledge like you do of petroglyphs, but apparently what happened, a supernova in the year 1006 AD, and you may know this, maybe some listeners do too, in the southern constellation of Lupus, it was visible brighter than, let's say, the planet Venus, or maybe that of a half moon. And the story continues, what I'm describing, here in the native area, the Native American tribal people that were here, and very interesting indigenous folks here. They always, their story should remain always important. And this is what they had, marked, I guess, on these petroglyph rocks. a remnant of a bright object with a bunch of stick figures of people standing around. And that might very well be a depiction right here in the small mountains in the Phoenix metro area of what happened way back then. So what do you call this? Archaeoastronomy, like the archaeology of astronomy, right?
Yeah, archaeoastronomy. And Phoenix is a major area for it, especially down in the South Mountain area. There are a lot of alignments, and yes, there are witnesses of events. The same thing happened with the supernova in 1054 AD, and that seems to be represented in Chaco Canyon in New Mexico on a panel that's actually over your head. You look up at a ledge, and there's a handprint and a star and a crescent moon, and that particular supernova appeared in July of 1054 based on Chinese records, and it was the same. It was a bright star next to the crescent moon. So people have been looking up. I mean, we've been looking up until the last century or two. It's only been recent, really the last 50 to 80 years that we have blotted out the night sky the way we have.
Sure.
And so if you really look at human history, we've been a member of the night sky for almost all of it. And this is a rare moment where we're fairly disconnected from it.
1-800-848-9222. Many subjects to talk about. You, the audience, as we call it, Theater of the Mind, with the most powerful signal that you'll probably find anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Proud to be here. Talk Radio 77 WABC, 1-800-848-9222. If I may shift gears on you, I want to ask you this particular question. All of the sightings that we have, and we could go off into a different, unpaved road here as you and your partner are going out to the most distant locations, let's say beyond Area 51 in Nevada, in search of the Bortle, the darkest of skies. What's your take on all these different sightings that have happened in the last couple of years? And the whole story going back to Congress saying that, many of the whistleblowers are saying, well, yeah, we have evidence of extraterrestrial craft. We have the bodies. And then it kind of fizzles out like a balloon that lost its helium or air. Well, what say you on that subject? I mean, because you're out in the sky, you've probably seen strange things too, right?
Yes, I've seen many strange things out at night, and things that I can't explain technologically. That I'm not sure. I spend a lot of time, in the Southwest, a lot of military bombing ranges and whatnot. So I've seen the oddest things out there, which I'm fairly used to. I'm used to seeing flares on parachutes and explosions in the distance.
Sure.
And I basically have no information other than looking up and going, what is that I'm seeing? And I think that's the nature of being out in these darker places where if anything unusual happens in the sky, you see it.
Right.
I see when Mars goes into retrograde motion and starts moving the other way against the stars. So I'm used to spotting the smallest things that change. And yeah, the odd lights, the lights that move at incredible speeds, they definitely stand out to me.
Well, we'll open up and light a fire under this one because the listeners in the New York metro area and all through the East Coast, you know this, they've been seeing so many strange objects since October of last year, maybe actually before that, and still no definitive declaration of what it was. Even the Trump administration hasn't come out and definitively said, well, these are United States military drones or their craft. Obviously, the Chinese have not come out and said, yes, that's us. The North Koreans or the Russians haven't. So that's an interesting story, too, because so many people who watch the skies, and maybe they don't have the great knowledge yet, that's why we try to impart this to them, is that they're seeing so many strange things. And that's interesting, too, that anybody wants to comment. We don't have all the answers, but you being out into the darkest of skies, let's go backwards. The people in the New York metro area probably have a Bortle 8 or 9. No disrespect to the location. They're not seeing a lot, but yes, they are seeing things, right, Craig? So that behooves, what the heck is all that going on? That's the strangest thing. Nobody's ever answered that. And that's kind of troubling, don't you think? People deserve to be told the truth. And boy, am I an optimist.
Yeah. And I have no idea what that truth would be. I feel like the night sky in general is something that makes you look up and go, what am I looking at? Mm-hmm. Just seeing the stars in themselves, you're looking up and, if you didn't have a knowledge of astronomy, you would just, which I think is important sometimes, to let go of the knowledge of astronomy and just look up and feel the immensity. And I think that the whole night sky in itself is a mystery. And of course we have, odd things happening. And that just adds to the mystery. Odd things being not astronomical, being, strange lights. There's a lot going on up there. And to think that most of our reality is Earth, is, the rocks and trees and buildings in front of you, that's not the case. Half of our reality, or all of it, the infinity is what you see when you look up.
That's the most troubling thing, because look, you're a man of viewing the heavens. I do this, other people do it, and we encourage many people, everybody listening. That's a great thing to do. But here's the thing. If you look into a Bortle 1, the darkest of skies, and you see the plethora of objects out there, the nebulae, the comets, the other star systems, the galaxies beyond, to me, it's just a basic thing. How could we be just the only, quote, intelligent life form out there? And we're seeing what, Craig? So many planetary objects around distant stars.
Yeah.
There's 6,000 or so exoplanets, and the beat goes on. So what the heck is going on here? I mean, I would believe very simply if somebody said yes or no, hit the switch. Yeah, I'd have to believe there is something out there. It would be ridiculous to assume that we're the only kind of life at all. And hopefully
and
it's
I think that's, for me, the point is just asking the question, is that because you have the view, you ask, what is up there? You ask, is there other life? You ask, what are we seeing? What are the magnitudes of these stars? What are these fuzzy patches, which are galaxies or nebulae? And
correct.
It's the question that's generated by looking up, and that's what I fear that we're losing, because we lose the night sky. You're not looking up and going, "Oh my gosh, what am I seeing?" You're just looking up and seeing the reflected glow of the city, and I feel like the night sky maybe made us human, made us ask these questions, made us look farther than what's right in front of us. And to lose that is to lose a curiosity and a deep connection with the unknown, where the Earth is, there's plenty of unknown on the Earth, but still you can pick up a rock and hold it in your hand and know it in that sense. But a star, you can't. And so I think that engenders a questioning and an exploration that we need, that defines us as a species.
Yeah, and everything's frequency and energy, and not to go way off the beaten path here, as we're going to explore with you and your partner on a trek across the desert to find the darkest of skies. Wasn't it true that Johannes Kepler, who gave us the planetary laws of motion, 1, 2, and 3, he had a belief simply this, that there was music and different tone resonances of these individual planets simply called the music of the spheres. And you were telling me that, am I correct in reading the book, that you and your father had an experience, or somebody there talked about actually experiencing tonality from the sky or something?
My dad used to talk about it all the time, and he, you'll like this. My family.
Well, now you know I read the book, right? There you go.
So my family's all from, or most of them are from Roswell.
Oh wow!
So I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But he would tell me, we'd go out and camp in the desert outside of Phoenix, and he would tell me, you can hear the stars, you can hear this music of the spheres, and he would talk about the Greeks and their theories on how stars made music. And, but I remember Aristotle was one who said, no, that's not true, that it's just because you're looking up and you're seeing something that is that powerful, you think it makes a noise. But, if you're in that really deep, like Bortle 1 dark sky, and maybe it's that it fills your senses to such an extent you hear it. And I can't say that I actually hear it with my ears, or it's just such an overwhelming experience that my senses are grappling. But they're looking for, they're saying there's got to be sound here because there's so much going on.
Well, Craig, one that maybe is down your path of experience and knowledge, of course, and other people, is when we talk about the aurora borealis or aurora australis, the southern aurora. And most people know, you've been hearing these bulletins, our past shows have talked about the great solar flares that happened last year, this year, and we get this, induced energy, these proton storms that come and light up the ionosphere called auroras. And I've read so much about this, and I wonder if you've also heard this, that many people, the indigenous tribal people of those areas of the north, way up in the super latitudes where it's dark most of the time during winter, they've actually heard emanations and sounds from the aurora borealis. Have you heard of such a story? I find it fascinating. If that's true. Yeah,
I have heard that, and it does not seem out of the question to have those subatomic particles raining in on us from the electromagnetic sphere and hitting us at these northern and southern points. There's so much going on, so much passing through the atmosphere and passing through your body that it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I guess the time that I really thought I heard it was sitting out in the desert in Utah on a full moon. And I swear I could hear this just high pitch, like a choral symphony, coming from the moon, which I had to sit there and go, okay, is it just because this is such a powerful moment to have the moon radiating across the desert and I'm sitting out here alone, or am I actually hearing something? And I don't know if there's a difference. I don't know if it matters if there's a difference, or if it's just that our senses are so open that we pick up sound.
It's amazing because the animals do, and their ability, look, dogs and cats have the ability, as many people know. I'm not a veterinarian or a specialist in that area by any means, but apparently they see, as many other animals, different spectral lines and different abilities to perceive. And that's so incredible because even though we think we're the top of the heap, we really aren't. And if the universe is just us, wow. Yeah. I might have to send a text to the Almighty and say, hey, let us know really what's going on up there because, not to knock humanity. I guess the problem is for so long, we simply just we're not able to get along. And that's a problem too, don't you think? But that's the stuff of a whole nother story. And
I think we think of ourselves as the top of the heap, but and technologically or however we are, but in so many other ways we have lost our senses. We've lost. Yep. I mean, we're losing our ability to navigate.
Well, let's say this. This is a multi-subject kind of a conversation here as we do the theater of the mind. But again, we do regular programs, as people know, on the whole problematic thing of AI, the whole thing of transhumanism, and the whole subject matter, ladies and gentlemen, of technocracy, which is not really for this show. But the reason I mention it, it's seemingly taking us away from the nature. And that's exactly what we're talking about here, folks, as we go to the next hard break momentarily. But when we come back with Craig's opinion, if he'll do this, I hope he will, I'd like to talk about a quick summary of his book so people can understand what the whole purpose is. I think some people have heard most of it, but exactly what happened at the end of that journey and some of the other stories of the ancient civilizations that they've passed through, so many fascinating sky stories. And then, folks, we may want to do something a little different here for the remaining portion of the show, and that is give each and every one of you an opportunity to hear what we've pulled together of some of the top stories in astronomy of 2025, some discoveries and some events, and also that, ladies and gentlemen, in the world of space. And as I mention often, if you'd like to hear a replay of the Dr. Sky January 2026 Sky Update at the Dr. Sky Experience at WABCRadio.com, please do that, because we go into about a 10-minute update for those of you that may have little knowledge of the heavens, all the way up to those that have telescopes, and maybe during the holidays, you might even have questions of me and others about how to use the darn contraption that you got. That is the email drsky@wabcradio.com. More on the other side of the break with the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
A sunset is the sun's fiery kiss to the night. A great quote from Unknown. How about that? At 31 minutes after the hour, as we move closer to a new year, as the Earth rapidly spins around our fusion ball called the Sun, to the year we call 2026. Our special guest, Craig Childs, author of a great book, ladies and gentlemen. If you're an outdoors type and want to learn about how to find the darkness of night, his book, The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light, he continues to join us to the top of hour number 2. And yes, what's more important than that? You, ladies and gentlemen, at 1-800-848-9222, as we continue here with what we like to call Theater of the Mind. Craig, interesting conversation with you, and I know it's interesting as we discuss things that are happening in the heavens. Give us a quick summation, though, and we want people to get the book. But the end journey that you find, I mean, obviously it's well worth it. So where is that location without giving us latitude and longitude from downtown Las Vegas, the darkest of skies?
Yeah, we biked due north out of Vegas, and actually over the length of the trip, which was about 200 miles, we biked out of the Mojave Desert and into the Great Basin Desert. So there was a vegetation change. We entered a new kind of desert, and we ended up in the middle of Basin and Range National Monument, which is it is an empty monument. There are some signs around the edges, but there's really not much in there. It is a wild and remote place, which is where we arrived at the darkest sky, which, you know, it's saying the darkest sky. There's a certain level where dark is just dark. It's the same dark that you would have found 10,000 years ago, the same dark you would find in the Arctic or out at sea. So it's not that it is rare, but it can be found anywhere around the world. I mean, you can. It's harder to find on the East Coast, but there are Bortle 2s on the East Coast. But we entered a Bortle 1, 200 miles north of Las Vegas.
Well, it's obviously, if you're on mountain bike type bikes, big fat tires, and hopefully you don't get too many blowouts. I imagine that's easily accessible or easy to go there with what, 4-wheel drive vehicles? I mean, could 4-wheel drive vehicles do that with no problem at all?
Oh yeah, you could get there. A lot of these places, it would be, I don't know, a 2-hour drive out of Vegas, and you could take a streetcar, figure out which roads are good to get out to these really dark places from Vegas. It's not that far. I mean, that was one of the odd things about it, is to go, okay, we biked through some really challenging terrain for 9 days to get to this place, which was a place that we could have driven to. Or I live in a Bortle 1 in Colorado, so I actually live in that kind of darkness.
I envy you, my friend. That's amazing. But again, you're choosing to live off the grid, which I respect. And, I think many people might have more questions about that. And we're not selling living off the grid. You're telling us this is your lifestyle for the most part. Since how long did you tell us? Since you've been doing that?
Since 1990.
Wow.
I've been off grid, which is more the nature of where I live. That the electricity isn't the grid electricity isn't available there. But it's also, I prefer the dark places away from the core of civilization. And that's not to say I don't love the core. I mean, I love going to New York. I can't wait.
Me too.
For my next trip to New York.
I'm from there, and I love it. You bet, it's in my genes.
It's an amazing place. But I need to come back to the dark, and I feel like we need the balance. I appreciate civilization and all that it brings, or at least some of what it brings. And then I really appreciate coming back home, and the other way around. I think if you live in the city,
sure.
Yeah, get out. Have a look at something that's very different. Have a look at.
Speaking of New York City, Craig, you had a World Trade Center story, I think, over the course of many years. What was it as far as depicting light? Tell us that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I did go up into the North Tower way back when. I think it was 97, 98. Something like that, and went up to the bar, the windows on the World Bar, and
yes, beautiful place.
Yeah, and I'd never been that high off the ground in a building, and I was up there at night, and it was really stunning. The windows in that bar went all the way to the floor without any kind of visual barrier, so you'd walk out right up to the glass and just have this gulping vertigo. But I was looking out across the city, which was just brilliant, just amazing to see. And then I went back to a similar height 2 years ago, just to compare the difference. It was in the Hudson Yards building.
Yes. There's
a way up onto the top, and it's the light has changed significantly since the 90s.
How so?
Yeah. Well, it was a warmer, more red, yellow, orange light, and now it's a colder LED light, which treats the eye very differently. The old gas discharge variety of lights, which are less efficient, but they treat the eye differently. You can they're less damaging to the eye. They allow for you to see subtleties where the bright LEDs, they lead to macular degeneration. I
didn't know that. Really? Macular degeneration from what? From LED exposure?
Yeah. And LED technology is changing. Mm-hmm. So I'm imagining that over the next 10, 20 years, we're finding that you don't have to have these cold, bright blue, white lights. You can add more red into them, which is much better on the eye. And I've talked to some lighting engineers who have said, based on our understanding of how to work with LEDs and how to change lighting, that we may actually be turning around toward a darker world, that we don't need as much light, that we know how to make places safe with less light.
And there's ways to shield the light. I mean, just to give people, there's something out there that you know so well, the audience may not. Dark sky communities like Sedona, Arizona is declared one, a place here in Arizona, closer to Phoenix, Fountain Hills, you name it, ladies and gentlemen, they're out there. And they do the very best they can. The concept of what? Preserving the night sky. There's ways to live with the world of doing lighting, and you shield the lighting and blah, blah, blah. But that's a very important thing that people really need to know about, and we bring it up on this particular show. It's awesome.
Yeah, because a lot of the lights we use, we just put them out there to light everything up, as opposed to lighting the thing that you want lit
Right,
up.
like the football field when nobody's on it from midnight to 6 a.m., and why you have the blaring lights on. Isn't that a waste of energy? Or if somebody could use it, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
Oh, it's not only a waste of energy, it's just this sloppy use of light, because it's going everywhere. Where if you shield a light, like, you really shouldn't be able to see the light source. It should be hidden. Exactly. And the light is just landing on what you need to see. And when you don't have a shielded light source, that means it's going everywhere. So it's basically trespassing. It's going into places where it doesn't belong, and it's making it hard to see, and it's not necessarily safe. Especially out where I live in a more rural place, people really light up their houses, and that when I see a lit up house, I go, oh, well, I can see everything that you're doing, and I can see how to approach your house if I wanted to, because I can see where the shadows are. But places that are softly lit, those are harder to approach and harder to break into, and so. Light does not necessarily mean safety. In fact, it can mean a lack of safety. It can create harsh shadows where people can hide.
You bet. 1-800-848-9222 as we go to the top of hour 2. Still time, ladies and gentlemen, with your questions and comments on a wide variety of subjects with Craig Childs. And on a positive closing note, I remember many times our family would be fortunate to go, and I was there at the World Trade Center, windows on the world. What a beautiful location. And I'm only describing the view as you described. It's just literally amazing. And that all goes, I guess, to a restaurateur who, of course, I think was managing that or made it so well known in the world, the best restaurant in the world to many, a gentleman by the name of Joe Baum, I think, that actually worked to develop that. And obviously, our hearts go out to those that perished on 9/11. What a horrible day in American history on a whole nother subject. But that is interesting. Shielding the light, as Craig is talking about, many ways. I'm not an electrician. You're not probably. But the simple thing is communities can get together for those of you that want to continue to see the night and the beauty of the night sky. And let's say again, not to be overly repetitive, if you have children and you want to leave them some kind of a legacy to see something that how many people in the world, right, Craig, have never ever seen the Milky Way? And some might say, well, who cares? But we're talking to those that do care. Very few people in the whole planet of 8 billion, let's say, have ever seen the most amazing part of the galaxy we live in, right?
Yeah, the estimate is that 80% of people in the world live in a place where you can't see the Milky Way. And that doesn't, I mean, there are plenty of places that have good stars and you can't really see the Milky Way, but you can still see some stars. And it's not that just the darkest places are protecting their night skies. There's a Boulder City, Utah, or Boulder City, Nevada, right outside of Las Vegas. I know it well. Is a dark sky community, and it seems impossible because they're right next to Vegas. But basically, they're saying, okay, we're darker than Vegas, and we're going to hold the line here. In fact, we're going to try to make it darker than that. So you don't have to be in the darkest of the dark places to have a fantastic night sky and to preserve that darkness. Like, I think Las Vegas could be a dark sky community, even though it's as bright as it is. They could say, okay, we're going to not get brighter than this. We're going to protect the night sky where we are, because it is a thing that deserves protection.
It sure does. You say it so well. More, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back in our final segment as we move to the close of hour number 2, as we move closer to the new year, 2026. Craig Childs, our special guest. His book, again, you should look at it, ladies and gentlemen, if you're concerned about the wonders and quality of the night sky. The Wild Dark, Finding the Night Sky in the Age of Light. I'm Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, with the Dr. Sky Experience. Proud to be here. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, wishing you and your families the best for a safe, healthy, prosperous 2026. We will be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's a beautiful and delightful sight to behold the body of the moon. This said a long time ago by the famous astronomer who discovered the moons of Jupiter, the 4 primary ones, Galileo Galilei. 46 minutes after the hour, Craig Childs is with us. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the callers right now. They've been patient. Let's say good morning to Corey in the great state of Maine. How are you this morning? Do we have Corey? Going once for Corey, twice for Corey. Let's move on to Max in Manhattan. Good morning, Max. Happy New Year to you and your family. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Sky, and thank you, Dr. Childs. You were mentioning the tones coming out of the sky, and I thought of Gustav Holst. He has a piece of music that he wrote called The Planets. And ironically, he begins it with the top of the zodiac, which begins in March. And I don't know, I just figured I'd throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
There is something else that comes to mind, and that is that in the year 2239 or 2240, we're going to be approaching the Messianic era. This is going to be announcing, we'll be approaching we'll be meeting the year 6000. Right now, we're up to the years that we're up to is about 5,700 and change, and we're meeting that 6,000 year cycle in the year 2239 and 2240. And I thought that this could be, we're sliding into this Messianic era, and it just very well might be why we're having we're peaking right now with all the political mess that we're going in.
Yes, Max, it's amazing. That's incredible. But Craig, you got the floor on this one, because that's amazing how spirituality and things that are written about in prophecy. That's interesting. What do you say, Craig?
Well, and Max, you bring up Holst and the Planet Suite, and that is such an ethereal, so beautiful listening to Holst. I recommend everybody here listen to the Planet Suite, because as you go out farther and farther in the planets in the symphony that he did, you get to Neptune and farther out, and the music just becomes so, you feel like you're floating through space. And your question about, or your comment about, how things affect what's going on here on Earth. I think there's so much that is not understood about where we sit in the solar system, the galaxy, how things really affect us, and I don't know if we'll ever understand. But I do wonder how we are where we are with such difficult things. But you could have looked at any point in history and said the same thing. You could have said, Rome is falling.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. That could very well be. As a matter of fact, I have some astronomical software, and when I set it to the year 2000, you see the Milky Way going up and down exactly due south to the Milky Way. In fact, south was splitting. Yeah. It was splitting between the two labi, and I set it on to other periods of time, and it did not do that. So there's something to be said about that. I don't know how articulate I'm being concerning this subject. I was hoping that...
No, you're being very articulate, Max, and we appreciate this, because, there's such a connection between things we don't know, spirituality, what's written in biblical times, and all different religions of the world, not just Christianity. They bring together so many interesting stories that... I appreciate you, and you get the final word, Max. We'll move forward, but go ahead, please, and thanks for calling.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on right now. There's a lot of something.
Thank you, Max, in Manhattan. Happy New Year to you and your family and everybody listening. You know what? I thought I'd do this, a little bit of a change here, just a few minutes left in our show. But first, let me thank you, Craig Childs. You have so many other books that we could spend so much time on. But how do people get in touch with you if they want to contact you? Well, how do they do that?
Oh, that's a good question. I stay out of contact.
Okay. Hey, wait a minute. I guess I should have been smart enough to know that a man who's off the grid probably doesn't have a big email server with an AI location there. There you go. So what do? You got to contact the publisher, which is Torrey House Press, I guess. That's them at torreyhouse.org. Torreyhouse.org is what's listed here on the book. Well, here we go. I thought I'd do a few topics that are in the news, ladies and gentlemen. The top stories, and this isn't just by, it's not official. These are just some of the top astronomy subjects that happened in 2025. Comet, Three-Eye Atlas. Well, you be the judge, ladies and gentlemen, but from after so many years of observation of comets, Myself and so many people believe it is an unusual comet, but not an extraterrestrial spacecraft. The possibility of asteroid 2024, UR4, striking the Earth is now something that you don't have to worry about. That's what they say. But it could strike the moon in 2032. Stay tuned. The James Webb Telescope's discoveries continue, reaching out almost to about 300 million years after the Big Bang of 13.8 billion. In simple English, we're getting closer to seeing that moment when it happened. Future lunar missions get set for Artemis 2 with NASA. Chinese missions continue. Artemis 2 will not land on the moon. It will orbit it. How about this? The largest known structure in the universe, Quapu. It's actually a word coming from the Incas, meaning cords and ropes. What does it have to do with astronomy? It's the largest structure in the universe known, 1.3 billion light years in length, 200 quadrillion stars. They didn't count them, but you might have to take our word for it. And then the debut of the Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile. For many years, I've known the people that helped build that. It's literally like a giant super megapixel camera that's going to observe the heavens like never before. And space tornadoes around something called Sagittarius A star. What the heck is that? The Milky Way, the central core, is 27,000 or so light years away. There's a massive black hole called Sagittarius A star, like an asterisk after the A. It's literally eating stars as you and I are sitting here. The supergiant Betelgeuse, the star in Orion that you can see if you have clear skies to the upper left part of Orion. It looks like there's a companion that was never seen before, and now some 6,000 exoplanets. They continue. The current news in space, well, we find out the big news of the year was astronauts Wilmore, and Suni Williams coming back after so-called being stranded in space on the Boeing Starliner. The Perseverance spacecraft, the rover on Mars, thinks it found some sort of maybe microbial life. These leopard spots that were detected, further analysis remains once they remove those particles and hopefully bring them back to the Earth. NASA's Parker Solar Probe goes 3.8 million miles close to the Sun. Craig, at the incredible speed of 430,000 miles per hour, last January the 1st. And the James Webb Telescope discoveries continue. A new moon around Uranus, and I say it in the politically correct way, object known as Uranus 2025 U1. Space tourism is great. Blue Origin, as we know, going to the upper areas of low Earth orbit and moving past the Kármán line. Space is now a battlefield, that's a fact, and SpaceX takes the lead, 175 to 180 launches so far this year, with Starship getting 5, and they may go public in the year 2026. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out, Craig, right? There you go. I left a lot out.
Going on up there.
Well, you get the last word, sir. I mean, there's a lot of words to say, but again, your passion for writing this, you're a naturalist, you have so many things, and as I described you, very apropos, and I know I'm, bragging on you, Craig Childs, like a modern-day Sir David Attenborough. He is a naturalist, bringing many of these subjects after his books talking about looking down at the Earth to looking up. What are some of your other books? Just tell us about some of those.
Oh, I wrote a book called House of Rain, where I walked 1,000 miles following pre-Columbian migrations in the Southwest.
Wow.
I wrote a book called Animal Dialogues, which are all wild animal encounters, and Tracing Time, which is about rock art, ancient rock art in the Four Corners area of the Southwest. So I've got quite a few books, and most of them are on the ground. And this is The Wild Dark is the only one that is focused entirely on looking up.
And a man who we respect, who stays off the grid. This is an interesting thing. When asked, how do we get in touch with him? His response was, well, here's my response. Since we respect that he's off the grid, for the most part, contact his publicist and publisher, Torrey, that's Torrey, torreyhouse.org, for much more information on our special guest, Craig Childs. So without revealing your location, you are in the state of Arizona. It's a pretty vast and wide piece of property. So you return back to your home, very soon, or you're going to be staying in Arizona for a while?
I'll be going back home in the next few days into a darker sky, but Arizona's got plenty of dark sky.
Yeah, it sure does. And ladies and gentlemen, just a note here, just a note of to give everybody out there always the truth. The last Saturday of every month, we are pre-recorded because my duties are on a dinner boat. If you're ever out in Arizona here, ladies and gentlemen, we do something on a boat called the Dolly Steamboat in the darker skies, not like a Bortle 1, Greg, but we're steaming around this lake called Canyon Lake with about 100 guests. And they do provide a wonderful meal, catered in, of course. And we do the night sky with our lasers. And if you're ever interested, ladies and gentlemen, in joining that, check them out at dollysteamboat.com. It's something that I've been involved in for 10 years and proud to be part of. But equally important, I want to thank owner and operator John Katsimatidis and family, and from the executive staff, Chad Lopez, for having the confidence in me to sit behind this microphone, ladies and gentlemen, talking about these subjects. What are they? Astronomy, space, aviation, weather, celebrity guests, so many more coming up in 2026. And stories of American exceptionalism. I spent time in the law enforcement world, in the military, and maybe you did as a listener of this particular archive, because we talk proudly about truth, justice, and the American way. And what other way is there, ladies and gentlemen, as we talk about American exceptionalism and so much more here on the Dr. Sky Experience. Craig Giles, thank you, and a blessing to you and your family for a great, healthy, and happy 2026. Let's do it again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve. I sure appreciate it.
My pleasure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do this. We pass the torch of conversation to TJ McCormick for the other side of midnight. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, you can always go to listen to the Dr. Sky Experience rebroadcasts as podcasts. But what about all the other great hosts here on this most powerful radio station, Talk Radio 77 WABC, as it moves through time and space with 104 years of experience. And let me thank our helmsman, Kevin, for navigating the powerful signal of 77 WABC. We'll see you in the new year with great information here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.